welcome to this special moment. We have a very important topic to discuss, and we are privileged to have three seasoned speakers who will take us through the various aspects of this important topic. And as we all know, the topic is witchcraft accusations in Ghana, to close or not to close the witch camps. I've had the privilege of visiting some of the camps, and I know what goes on there. And when you talk about witchcraft accusation, it literally prevails in almost every culture in our country. Now, we do have it more pronounced in terms of the effect in the three northern regions. So without wasting much time, I'd like to introduce our first speaker for today. We'll have Madame Esther Boateng, Northern Regional Programs Manager, Action Aid Ghana. Action Aid has been involved in various initiatives in relation to witchcraft accusations and the operation of witch camps in the northern part of Ghana. She will speak for about 20 minutes, and thereafter, I will have the second speaker, Madame Hilary Bedema, who will be introduced when her turn is on. So again, welcome, and let's pay attention as she presents. Please feel free to send in your questions on chat, and when the speakers are done speaking, we'll be able to ask questions and pass various comments. So may I welcome Madame Esther Boateng to share with us.
Thank you very much. Today we are talking about witchcraft in Ghana, and for Action Aid, we've been working with this group of people for some time now. And for Northern Ghana, women who are accused of witchcraft by their relative members of the community run or flee to this camp when they are banished from their houses or their communities. The camps offer very poor living conditions and not much or little hope for these people who run to the camp. These women are discriminated, they are mobbed, and they are blamed for all crimes that happen in their communities. Some people will say that I dreamt and saw you in my dream, and that means that you are a witch and you will be accused. For the lucky ones, those who are in the camp, I will say they are very lucky to be in the camp, because some of them are beaten to death, and some of them, all their property destroyed. And we have some of these women who have spent over 40 years in this camp, and it becomes the condition at the camp is very deplorable, but they don't have any other place to go, so they keep on being at the camp. Effectively, these witch camps are like prisons for women who are accused of witchcraft, because it's not a home for them, and it's difficult for them to stay there. Action Aid Ghana started working with the camps in 2005 by providing basic needs like food, water, shelter, and educating them. But later on, we saw that for sustainability's sake, we need to empower them to know their rights and also to demand for their rights as human beings in these camps. Over 1,500 women were at that time living in the camp from northern region and also from upper east region, living in various camps in the region. These people were accused, expelled, and they had to run for safety. We have a lot of them who died along the line. ActionAid, working with them at the camp, started an adult literacy with them to empower them. We supported them in various aspects while they were in the camp. So we, at a later date, around 2010, there was a reintegration, there were a forum for all stakeholders to discuss the issue of witchcraft allegation in northern region and the country as a whole. So it was then that a committee was formed to oversee and work with these groups. So we had the Reintegration Committee that comprised of NGOs, government institutions, we have human rights, we have traditional authorities, Ministry of Gender, and a whole lot of people in this committee. And we later on we saw that for these women to get a voice, they need to come together. But there are various places. We have Bonyasi, we have Kukuo, we have Ngani, we have Nabuli, we have Gusegu, Patenga, and all that. So we formed a network of women living in these camps so that they can interact, they can come together and get a bigger voice. So we have the network of alleged witches living in various camps. We also went ahead to rehabilitate their houses. From time to time, we support them to rehabilitate them. We do health screening for them, provide them with food, water, help them to farm so that they can feed themselves. And recently, we have also gotten support from Australia Aid to support these women to provide water and sanitary facilities at the camp. We also supported them with basic livelihood skills. Those who are strong, who can do something for themselves. And even some of them, they are dependent so that they can help to take care of these old women at the camp. The major thrust of ActionAid's campaign on this is the liberation of these women. These women need to be liberated. If you have been at the camp for 40 years, your youthful life, you were in the camp. And now you don't even remember the names of your children or the community you are from, then it's very difficult. There are also young children who accompany some of these people to the camp. And because of stigmatization, their schooling, they can't school, they are there, and it's very difficult. We work with them. We have worked with them to reintegrate over 300 women from various camps. And we've been able, with the support from the Gender Ministry, in 2014, closed down the Bonyase camp. And with support from Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, 2019, we closed down the Nabuli camp. We are still on trying to see how we can integrate more people, sensitizing communities where we have a lot of accusations coming from around these various camps, because we thought that These are the communities we can work with so that they can stop the accusation and also stop the inflows into the camp. Those who are ready to go home, we assist them to go back home after we have done a lot of work with their community, their families, and they are ready to accept them home. The conditions at the camp is not something we can write home about. There are most of the camps have the houses, mud houses with thatch roof, and it keeps on leaking, and staying at the camp become unbearable for some of them. Supply of food to them is inadequate, and some of them have to walk several distances to even fetch water. And there are no regular services of health by the state or other institutions to help them. Education facilities are non-existent for some of the camps. And if they are even the health facilities are available, some of the women cannot even afford. There are a few of the women who are on the LEAP program, and some district assembly also support them to register under the health insurance scheme, but not all of them are the various camps. And there are a lot of abuses at the various camps, and also when they are accused. A lot of people, when they are accused, are beaten, are verbally assaulted, destruction of their properties, and so many things. But the most worrying situation is the camps, where they think that they are running there for safety. There are also abuse in the camp. We have some of the women and their dependents being sexually assaulted. Monetary exploitation, they are exploited. In some of the camp, every market day you have to pay a certain amount to the camp owner. These women are not working. How do they get this money to pay? So you are either paid by kind or you pay by cash. And when it happens, if you don't have them, you are so old and you cannot pay by cash or pay by kind, you are verbally assaulted, and it's a worrying situation. Some of them are forced into labor. They work on the farms of the camp owners, and they are not paid for it. Community around the camp area also come and use them to work to pay them, but at the end, they don't even pay them. So they work without pay, and how to even eat becomes a problem. And it's not only the women at the camp who are abused, but also their dependents. In one of the camps, you go and see a lot of children in the camp. Children who have been there, you can have about from 6 to 10 years. You ask who are their fathers, and nobody can tell you. Some were raped, and as a result, they gave birth to these kids in the camp. Some of the camp in Ghana here. There are a lot of challenges that we face working at the camp. There are a lot of people who decide to give some relief items to these women at the camp to support them. But unfortunately, some of these things are diverted by the camp owners. They won't give it to them. If you insist to share it for them, they will not be happy with you. So those who do not know will leave it with the camp owners, and they won't give it to the women. They will take it. And there is also an entrenched social-cultural belief that is fueling the accusations from the various communities. And when it happens, the one who accuses the woman is protected, and the woman will be at the mercy of the community. One of the challenges is also that we don't have accurate data of the true alleged witches at various camps. You go today, you have about 100. The next time you go, they say, oh, the number is not 100. It's more than that. So the true alleged witches at the camp is not known. So it makes it difficult in working at the camp. Some of the camps too, access to the camp is a problem. The roads are bad. So if you want to even give them something and you are not resourced to get a stronger vehicle or how to get to the camp become a problem. And our biggest challenge is there is no coordination of the work and the activities at the camp. And he will go in and come, go in and come. Nobody is coordinating what is happening there. So it's something that we need to work on. To close or not to close these camps. Action A's ultimate objective is to leave the alleged witches to leave the camps. That is our ultimate objective. And in leaving the camp or reintegrating them, we want to see a safety place they are going. With this, we need to do a lot of consultation, dialogue with the families and with the communities they are going into, so that these women will have a safety place, a safe place to be. So the work we've done so far took us a lot of time because of the dialogue. Sometimes we are even chased out from some communities for mentioning the name of the alleged witches, that they are coming back to the town or the community. It's very complex in dealing with either to close or not to close, because the women themselves need to accept that I am going, and their families need to also accept that our relative is coming home, and we will make sure the person is catered for and the person is safe. The community, and especially the youth groups in some of these communities need to agree that these people are coming. So for us, we think that they have to go. The camps needs to be closed, but it's a gradual process. If it took us more than 10 years to close Bonyase and another 5 years to close Nabuli, then we should have an idea. The work at hand, you need to do a lot of work. So I don't think the camp can be closed all camps can be closed in the next 10 to 20 years, because the work you have to do and the safety of these women, they are agreeing, is very paramount.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Boateng, for such insight into what actually goes on in the camp. Like we said to participants earlier, if you have questions on what she just shared, please send them to the chat. At the appropriate time, those questions will be read out and she'll give us the appropriate response. Again, thank you very much, Madam Esther Boateng, for all the effort and insights that you've given us. We'd like to move on to our next speaker, Madam Hilary Bedema. She will be speaking specifically on witchcraft accusation and witch camps from human rights perspective. Madam Hilary Bedema is a lawyer and a women's rights activist. She has been a member of the UN Committee on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women since 2013, and she was the committee's chairperson between 2019 and 2021. So I'd like to invite Madam Hilary to speak.
Very well. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to engage in this discussion, to close or not to close. I will begin by also thanking Madam Esther Boateng for her very insightful introductory speech that sets the tone. I would like to inform her that I am really proud of the work Action Aid has done there. I myself was a board member of Action Aid for 8 years, and I appreciate the work Action Aid is doing. I also want to appreciate Nana Oye Bampuado, with whom I worked on this and other issues. Indeed, I'm to speak about the human rights dimensions, the legality, Ghana's own constitution, the UN, the Committee on the Elimination of all Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, which, as you said, I've chaired until March this year. And I am grateful to engage in this topic, which brings together the intersection and the complexities of law, women's human rights, culture, religion, and all the logistical complexities that have just been outlined. And let me say upfront that I am really respectful of all these dimensions. I will begin by noting that Ghana is committed to human rights. And this is enshrined in our 1992 Constitution, Chapter 5. Therefore, the recent threats and lynchings of women, killing of women on witchcraft allegations raises human rights issues, both at the national and the international levels. Ghana's laws, the Constitution, Article 17(1), provides for equality before the law and the prohibition of discrimination on grounds including gender, social, or economic status, as we have seen in the issue of the alleged witches. The gender dimension is important because when we look at the numbers, they are disproportionately women. And I'll be coming back to that, no wonder, because I am on the Committee on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Now, Article 15(1) provides for the inviolability of every person's dignity, even when arrested. So even if you go as far as saying somebody is a witch, there must be dignity and should not be subject to torture, cruel, inhuman, or degrading punishment, or any other condition that detracts from their dignity and worth as a human being. And we see all these violations in the allegation and the quarreling of women who are said to be witches. Very important is Article 40, which says that in dealing with other nations, the government will promote respect for international law, treaty obligations, and it lists various treaty bodies, including the UN, and says it ropes in any other international organization of which Ghana is a member. Therefore, this brings to the fore the importance of the communications Ghana receives from bodies like the UN, the CEDAW Committee, and what the CEDAW Committee actually says about these witchcraft allegations. In addition, Ghana has a wide range of criminal and civil laws. Criminal laws that deal with the issues of assault and murder, as we've seen in the issue of witches, and civil laws that deal with defamation. So even to accuse someone of being a witch is actionable under our laws. In addition to the practices that accompany these allegations, the naming, the isolation, the physical and mental harm, as Madame Esther Boateng has already talked to us about, and the restriction from participation in public life. I will now turn to CEDAW, the committee. CEDAW's jurisprudence, which is binding on Ghana as a result of the international obligations I've spoken to in the Constitution, says that violence against women is a form of discrimination. And these alleged witches are also subject to violence. It defines discrimination, so the broader concept under which the violence comes, as including gender-based violence, that is violence directed against a woman because she is a woman or that which affects women disproportionately. And I've already talked about the numbers. And it includes physical and mental harm or suffering, which we have already heard about. Now, the consequences of these violence is that the women's enjoyment of their human rights and fundamental freedoms under human rights conventions, which Ghana is obliged to adhere to, are restricted. We again note that discrimination against women takes roots from the traditional attitudes by which women are regarded as subordinate. So it is also a social control mechanism, and where women are considered subordinate to men or having stereotyped roles. These, in turn, bring out these practices which involve the violence and coercion that we have seen, the prejudices, and so on. Now, the consequences of gender-based violence affect the right to life. So this goes beyond culture, even though we recognize and respect the culture. It goes to the liberty and security of the person. And again, I cannot thank Madam Esther enough for speaking about the security implications. And it also restricts the freedom of movement, the right not to be subjected to torture, cruel and inhuman and degrading punishment. As we have already seen, other human rights affected are the right to family life. She said people cannot even remember the families they've come from. Social and economic rights, education, the number of children, she says, are milling around, and rights guaranteed women. I will therefore go and say that this violence takes roots or is established because of the lack of women's access to legal information, protection, the lack of laws that effectively prohibit violence against women, the failure to reform existing laws, inadequate efforts on the part of public authorities to promote awareness. We can see a lot of this work is NGO-led, even though the ministry has done phenomenal work. So this raises issues of state responsibility. And to enforce the existing laws, as I've already said, the plethora of criminal and civil laws could adequately deal with the issue of the alleged witches. And also the absence of education and other means to address the causes and consequences of violence. If we look at the profile of the women that are affected, you can see immediately the correlation between their situation and the absence of education. Now, in our convention, this violence affects issues of equality between men and women. It has impacts on stereotypes. It has impacts on labor, Article 12, health, labor, Article 11, health, Article 12, the rights of rural women, because this occurs in rural areas. And rural women are at a greater risk because of the circumstances, the isolation, the lack of resources and others. Equality before the law, because I don't think we have seen a successful legal challenge to the practice itself, and the right to family life. Now, let me come to what the CEDAW committee has told Ghana. It has said that states parties are to take appropriate and effective measures to overcome all forms of gender-based violence, whether by public or private actors. In 2007, it said it was concerned about the prevalence of patriarchal ideology, that is male control, with firmly entrenched stereotypes and deep-rooted cultural norms, customs, traditions, including, now I'm going to include these for purpose of comparison, for widowhood rights, female genital mutilation, trokoshi, that is ritual slavery, which discriminate against women and constitute serious obstacles to women's enjoyment of human rights. And it also says it's concerned about the persistence of the belief in witchcraft in some parts of the country, and that women accused of being witches are subject to violence and confined in witch camps. I have given this overview of traditional practices. And this is because there's been legislation against widowhood rights, legislation against female genital mutilation, legislation against trokoshi. Yet we still have the witchcraft issue, which was dealt with within this milieu, persisting. And it asked without delay to modify, eliminate these customs, to design comprehensive education and awareness raising programs targeting everyone, and to implement these in collaboration with civil society, women's organizations, and traditional leaders. And that we should come back, Ghana should come back to give an account of the measures taken. After that, in 2014, the first one is 2006, 2014, the committee was still concerned about the witchcraft phenomenon and named the regions and the high cases of violence against girls and older women alleged to be witches. And that has caused them to seek refuge in these so-called witch camps under difficult living conditions, including lack of access to adequate housing, sufficient food, water, and sanitation, and called for the swift closure of all witch camps, and that alleged witches should be provided with adequate rehabilitation and safe reinsertion into the communities, or alternative housing and livelihood options. Let me go into this in a little more detail. The CEDAW committee, our international obligations are for swift closure and safe reintegration. If that will not or cannot be done, we should provide alternative housing and livelihood options. Now, this means that if we are talking about a delay, which to me is untenable, we've had 15 years since 2006 and 7 years since 2014. We should ensure adequate housing. And my interpretation of adequate housing is not the re-roofing of thatched homes, mud homes, but we have experience in Ghana of creating communities. Tema was one of the first built communities in West Africa. Let us build communities. We have the example of Akosombo, where we built whole townships. If for any reason we are delaying in reintegration and swift closure, this is the standard we should be looking at, with schools, with hospitals, with markets, with facilities, with livelihoods. Now, this witches camp issue was again flagged for Ghana as a follow-up issue, which means that within 2 years, we should have reported on what we had done. And under the core obligations of states in General Recommendation 28, it says we should, states parties must condemn discrimination and pursue by appropriate means and without delay a policy of eliminating discrimination. Without delay, as I've said before, implies immediacy. Delay cannot be justified on any grounds, including political, sociocultural, religious, economic, resource, or any other considerations. In that case, we must seek international. So we have two options. One, without delay. Two, recreate the circumstances in which the women are. Now, let me ask in closing that we should interrogate our terminology and concepts. We have talked about the places being a refuge to which women run, a sanctuary, a safe place, and we have heard terminology about camps and prison-like conditions, or even worse, because in prisons, at least, you have structures, you have management systems, you have state control and state being in charge. We must name these for what they are. They are camps. They are more or less detention areas. Softening the terminology is just sugarcoating a quinine tablet. That is first. And we have talked about engagement, community preparation. I agree wholeheartedly. But the community engagement is even already beginning in the community. In the last case in which somebody was accused of making a baobab tree fall on a young man, the woman's relatives asked already, how can my grandmother push a tree against a young man? So the engagement is there. And we have been engaging community-wise with politicians. They come with our messages, their messages. We vote for them. We understand the message. We vote, revote, and vote them. Health practitioners have taught us how to deal with malaria, cholera, Ebola, and latest COVID. We comply. We should use these systems to engage and not use engagement as a reason for delay. CEDAW has asked that we intervene at the belief system entry point. Yes, that should have been ongoing for 15 years now, and 15 years is enough. Who would be in a camp, a shelter for 15 years? This is the way we should approach this discourse, with all the respect, with all the engagement, with all the collaboration, yet with the core issues. At the end of the day, it's do no harm. And the way that the international community has given us is clear. Reintegrate because of all the human rights violations listed, and that have been so well articulated by Madam Esther, or recreate the conditions they are in. I rest my case and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Hilary Bedema. And as lawyers do, indeed, she's wrapped up her case very well, and we are thankful to you. Thank you so much for sharing. Participants, just to remind us again that please, you can send your questions and comments through chat. At appropriate time, we will open the lines up for questions and answers to be given. We'd like to go to our third speaker, who is also a lawyer and a gender activist. Between year 2013 and 2017, she served as a Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection for the Republic of Ghana. So we would like to go straight to Nana Oye, and she will run us through the next topic, which will be reflection on state efforts towards addressing the witch camp phenomena. Thank you, Nana. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Patrick and all participants, thank you and good afternoon from Ghana. I hope you're all doing well. Auntie Hilary and Mrs. Boateng, thank you so much for your brilliant, comprehensive and succinct presentations on the issue of witchcraft accusations in Ghana. It is indeed, it's a very complex issue, having regard to the fact that there are very deep cultural and traditional undertones. And when you look at the research, you find out that about 90% of Ghanaians believe in witchcraft. So you can just imagine what it takes to protect women who are accused of being witches. And I'll start with a few accounts. I visited a witch camp in 1998 in Gambaga. There was a program with FES, and I went with some members of parliament, and it was very disturbing to go to the camp. And Mrs. Boateng mentioned the issue about the challenge with even presenting humanitarian relief items to the inmates. It was at that visit that we were told that you cannot give the items directly to the women. The items have to be given to the owner of the witch camp, and then she or he will distribute. Otherwise, the women will not use it. And we were left perplexed. There was also an issue of a woman who had been accused of witchcraft. What happened? She's a Muslim in Upper West region. I went on a visit there as a minister, and I had engagement with the chief, and this was brought to my attention by journalists. So during the fasting season like now, there was a lady who lived in her community who didn't have means. So when she made her porridge, she would offer this lady some of the porridge. This lady fell ill and was hospitalized. And the youth in the community said, it is the woman who has been giving her the porridge who has bewitched her. So in about 2 or so days, they performed a ritual. And what is the ritual? They kill, I think, a chicken or something. And then the way the chicken lies, or they have a ritual, the way the chicken lies will determine whether you are innocent or you are guilty. And you are declared the witch, and then you have to flee. So she, her husband, and her children, I think they were about 6 or 7, had to flee the community. It affected the children's education. It affected her trade. Her husband was actually a worker in the local government of structure and all that. So these are the everyday problems that witchcraft accusation brings on us. Like Auntie Hilary said, we have the legal framework if we're looking at state efforts. So on the part of law enforcement or on the part of legislation, we have our constitution. In 1998, we had our criminal code amended to include a new offense of customary servitude, where if you placed a woman in a camp, then you committed an offense. But up till now, I do not think that we have even more than 5 from 1998. I don't think we have more than 5 convictions or even prosecutions. What we did in terms of government is also to include this in our gender policy. So we adopted a gender policy in 2015, identified accusation, witchcraft accusation, and also the witchcraft as a form of gender-based violence that adversely affects protection of women. And this is in paragraph 2244 of the gender policy of the government of Ghana. When we look at the access to justice section of that gender policy, you find out that traditional authorities and then the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection have been identified as key strategic partners in addressing witchcraft accusation and the incidents of witchcraft. So the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection is the key public or government institution that should roll out policies, programs to address the issue of witchcraft accusation and inmates in witch camps. And so in terms of objectives of that policy, then also the National Commission on Civic Education is also identified as one key state institution that needs to create awareness and provide information. And I'll get to what NCCE has to do. I'm really excited to learn that we actually have 300 women who have been liberated so far. When we were leaving in 2016, it was 132 women who had been liberated, and we even reported it to the United Nations, the CEDAW committee. So there is some progress if now we have 300. In terms of the actuals, the nuts and bolts, there was a lot of collaboration with civil society. And Auntie Hilary said it right, that it's mainly been civil society driven. And so the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection on the 27th of November 2013, decided to have a stakeholders conference with all the relevant stakeholders like SONTABA, DOFSU, the Domestic Violence and Victim Support Unit, Action Aid. And here, let me salute Action Aid for their singular dedication to this cause over the decades and the work that they have done in this regard. So Action Aid has really worked very hard. And then there's the Go Home project. So, and then of course, the representatives of the inmates. So we all came together and looked at a roadmap and adopted a three-pronged approach. The first option was to close down all the camps. So there are about, I think there are about 5 or 6 camps. Kukwo, Gani, there are about 5 or 6 camps. So to close the camps where possible. If it's not possible, whilst negotiations are ongoing to close the camps, to provide humanitarian support to inmates of the camp. So to get government to provide humanitarian support through social protection to inmates of the camp. And also to work with the traditional authorities to actually stop the accusation and stop the picking up of women in the communities so that they would not have to run for refuge to a camp. So this three-pronged approach and the roadmap was adopted by government, civil society, NGOs, and other state institutions. And I'm happy to learn that this roadmap is still being pursued and being reviewed periodically. So this is what government also did. And then also, because of accountability, because this issue was raised by the UN CEDAW committee, in our 6th and 7th combined report for 2015, we also made mention of interventions and actions that government has taken. And I'd like to mention the role of the CEDAW committee in ensuring that government did or would do what it is supposed to do, and identifying that mechanism and how that helped in even advocating or even requesting from resources from our Ministry of Finance to help us to address some of the issues. So the CEDAW report and the list of issues and the recommendations that came after we had submitted and presented our 6th and 7th combined reports really helped us to also do some work and also implement some interventions for the inmates of the camps. So what did we do? For the very first time, we had social protection attaining cabinet status from 2013 under President John Dramani Mahama. So we took advantage of that opportunity and we ensured that the inmates received LEAP. So every 2 months, they would receive some amount of money. Not all of them were able to receive it. We also ensured that the National Health Insurance, as part of the law, they are supposed to provide registration and health insurance for indigent and vulnerable persons. So we spoke and met with the National Health Insurance Authority, and we made a case. I mean, for me, I don't even see why we needed to make a case because it's obvious, but we had to make a case, and the National Health Insurance moved in and registered. We're sorry that we're not able to present pictures to show you all of this. So these were some of the mechanisms under social protection that was provided. We also had a vocational school that was built in Gambaga, Upper East. No, I don't know whether, I think it's North or Upper East in Gambaga. But unfortunately, it got burnt down or there was a fire. So that, because we were hoping that that would help empower and train some of the children of the inmates. A typical woman accused of witchcraft would be 60 to 70, aged, poor, widowed, and very, very vulnerable. And personally, I thought for me, it was an ultimate duty to ensure that the women actually received the maximum support that we could give to them. Another big issue that I believe in terms of state response, we were not able to tackle effectively or even at all was the actual accusation. Because when we went to close down the Bunyasi camp, we realized that the youth in the communities were the ones who would pick up a woman and all that and say, you are a witch, and then match that person to the chief. The Northern Region traditional authorities, the House of Chiefs, were present in Bunyasi when we were closing down the camp. And significantly, we did that on Human Rights Day in 2015. And they said, well, we are in our palace, and the community bring the women. And it is one of our traditional responsibilities to perform the necessary rites to ascertain whether she's a witch or not. We've been skinned, and this is our role. I mean, this is what we have to do. There's not much we can do. And so we realized that there was a need to engage with the youth and get them to understand the human rights issues and the fact that what they were doing was wrong. And so I'm happy ActionAid is addressing that, but I would be happier if the National Commission on Civic Education and the Human Rights, the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice and other state institutions take this up. Because if we stop the flow, if we stop the supply, then that would help in quickly closing down these camps. And it's quite difficult to close down a camp. And Ms. Boateng would inform you, it took months of negotiation. It took months of meetings. Because of the cultural relativism, the people believe in it. We had to get a buy-in from the Northern Regional House of Chiefs. We had to negotiate, have several meetings with the local government authorities. And even the owner of the camp, we actually had to negotiate. And we had to look for an alternate source of income for the owner of the camp. So those of you from Ghana, we have something called Abubuya. It's a small truck that is used for loading farm produce and other produce. So government actually purchased that small truck for the woman because the 55 inmates were working on her farms. And it was such a moving, emotional scene when we visited the owner of the shrine or of the camp a day before the camp was closed. And here she was crying and saying that the 55 women inmates have become her sisters. And what is she going to do when they leave her? Like they were going to leave the next day. And it was really very emotional for us that, you know, despite the bondage, despite all that, they had developed a relationship. But what had to be done had to be done. ActionAid and other NGOs, together with local government and the Department of Gender, had to go do a tracing and go back to the homes of these 55 women, negotiate or have a meeting with the community and get them to accept the women back into the community. I think out of the 55, there were about 3 or 4 that the family said, no, we don't want her. So then we had to look for accommodation and all that, like Auntie Hilary is saying. So this is what actually happens. So it's quite an elaborate thing. And the cream on it all. We went, the ceremony, we went and sat there. Then they were dancing, dancing, and the women were all seated there. I had my white talcum powder to spray on them and everything. Then they came and said they had to do a sacrifice. And they came and they brought some fowl. And they said they had to slaughter the fowl. And before we could even do anything, before we could talk, before we could do the pacification and cleansing and all that, this fowl or chicken, the chicken had to be killed. And depending on how it fell on the ground, it would determine whether we could go on with the ceremony or not. And this, we had so many media houses, BBC, everybody was there. And I'm like, so this one chicken is going to determine our fate. Fortunately for us, it fell the way it should fall. And the chiefs examined it and said, well, we could proceed with the ceremony because the gods were willing for this to come on. So even at that stage, if it had fallen in another way, we could have had a problem. And you can imagine how my anxiety just shot through the roof at that. So this really helped. So in terms of gaps, one, National Commission on Civic Education, working with traditional authorities and the youth in the communities to create awareness and get them to understand. We did it successfully with female circumcision, so that now the rates have reduced. The Navrongo Health Research Center rolled out a plan, and now female circumcision, the rates have reduced. So I believe that if we put our minds to it and NCCE leads the process, we can get the youth to stop the witchcraft accusations. But government needs to come up with a strategic plan on witchcraft accusations, which then will be mainstreamed, will be taken from the gender policy, and we could implement. And I think we need that, a more vigorous response and a more structured response from government if we really want to address this. And we need to be sensitive to the cultural and traditional undertones, but we are progressing slowly, but at least we are taking the right steps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nanoye, and we thank God that the chicken fell the right way and the ceremony could continue. We've been blessed to have three key perspectives emerge in our conversation this afternoon. Madame Esther Boateng gave us very vivid picture of what actually takes place in the camp. I have been there personally, so I could identify, in almost all the details that she shared with us. And again, we also saw Madame Hilary Bedema give us the deep insights into what the human rights conditions are and what is expected of us as a nation and as a people. If you listen closely, Madame Esther Boateng was saying that the camp, it takes time for the camp to close down. She gave almost a span of 5 years, etc. Madame Bedema, from the human rights perspective, insisted it should be now and now. And now we've heard from Nanoye from the government angle, and she indeed has drawn our attention to the various stakeholders that are required to get the camps closed. So without much ado, we'd like to take some questions that have come in, and we'll take our first question. And this should go to Madame Esther Boateng. He says, are there still witchcraft accusations within the camps? And if yes, what are the implications to witch beliefs and actions within the society? If no, how is the society responding to those accused who are still in the camps? So if Madame Boateng can respond to this.
Yeah, thank you very much. Those at the camp, there are no accusations at the camp. When you get to the camp, there is pacification, right, that is done to neutralize your powers at the camp. So for the camp, there is no accusation. But outside the camp, the accusation keep on happening and people keep on coming to the camp. But the good thing is that when we closed Bonyase, the fetish priest was still there. People go there for consultation, but they do not live in the camp. So that is the good thing. They go there to consult, but they will not live there. So that is what we have at the camp at the moment.
Right, okay. There's another question directed at you. It says, if women have to leave the camp, we need to ensure the accusers are not there in the village, as it were, waiting for them. Women accept to go, and this needs a lot of advocacy. No woman should be forced to leave against their wishes. In other words, we should not push the women to leave the camp against their wishes. So in other words, what is their wish? Do they wish to stay in the camp, or do they wish to go back home to their families?
It's both. There are two ways. There are some of them who want to go back to their families and some of them who do not want to go back. A typical example is when we are closing down the Nabuli camp. We had almost about 10 to 15 people who said they do not want to go back to their communities again. So the Nabuli chief invited their families and told them that we are closing down the camp. So your family members are here. I want to give them land, not at where we have the camp, at various parts of the community. For you to build for them, let them stay there, but they will not be in the camp. And they did. They farmed for them, they built houses for them. So they are there, scattered around the community, but not at the camp area and saying that this is the witches' camp. So there are people who will not want to go back there and want to settle at other places. We have some in Tamale, we have some in Techimai. They decided to go and settle somewhere else, but not in their communities.
Right, thank you very much. There's a third question that can go to any of our speakers. The question is, why is it that only women are accused of witches? What about the men? Why is it that women are always associated with witchcraft in Africa? Any of our three speakers can speak.
Thank you. I'm sure there are some male inmates also. I remember one of the camps I visited beyond Yendi. I saw some male inmates. And this is where we talk about the gender, like the fact that it has to do with women. Somehow, most of those accused of witchcraft are women. Somehow, most of them are women. We don't really, know basically why. But this is when you look at the data, when you look at the statistics, mostly women who are actually accused. And so I'm sure we can get you the data. For instance, when we did a report in the Kukwo camp, you had 137, and we have 172 children and grandchildren, and 66% of them were women who were 70 years and above. Majority of them were coming from Bimbela and surrounding communities. In that camp, there were no males. In Ghani, Tindani, there were 273 witches, supposed witches and wizards, comprising 173 women, 80.4%, and 42 men, 19.6%. So in certain instances, but this is the face of a woman or a person accused of witchcraft in Ghana. Is a woman's.
Thank you very much. At the committee, we know why. And these are some of the reasons that I have listed in my presentation. The lower position accorded women in the society, their inability to access legal resource, that's our Article 15, the inability of the legal system to deal with the infractions, their lower socioeconomic status, and so on and so forth. It is very gendered. And that is why we say it is directed at a woman because she is a woman, or disproportionately because she's a woman. There are issues of power, there are issues of social control, and so on. So it is a very clear picture to us. We are very, very clear. We know why. It is socioeconomic, legal, status, lack of equality as the laws actually provide for. So these are some of the factors that make women easy pickings for witchcraft accusations. If you look at the figures, yes, as Honorable Nana Oye-Bampoado has said, yes, we have men, but the men are probably less than 5% or around 5%. Thank you.
Thank you.
And before I probably while let me re-emphasize that the committee, when it says swift closure now, is not unmindful of all the social dynamics, sociocultural dynamics, which I referred to at the beginning of my presentation and said we were very respectful of. It implies an inclusion of all of this and do no harm. But if there's a situation where the women cannot or will not leave, that is the alternative provided for making sure they live in dignity. They're provided dignity and not handouts. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. Insight. Thank you. We'd like to go to a question which may draw in some of our theologians. Perhaps Professor Zuma may want to speak to that also. He says, please, my question is, as a people, we have always had a defined cosmology, primary religion, and traditional religion. How do we talk about this issue without being too cerebral, eventually losing a part of our cultural identity as African people? I know our speakers, most of them are legal brains and etc. So I don't know if Professor Zuma would like to speak to this.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting question. I think we need to look at the issue at hand before we talk about losing our culture. What is culture about dehumanizing vulnerable women? What is culture about denying an elderly woman the privilege to spend time with their grandchildren and their families? What is culture about lynching an old woman publicly simply because someone had a dream that they saw her in their dream? There is Madam Bedema will attest to this. There are already laws in our constitution against harmful religious and cultural practices. Witchcraft accusation is completely indefensible on every ground. So to talk about it as culture, before we should know that it was also culture for witches to be killed and burned in Europe for many centuries. It was culture, and the church supported it there. It was the culture there. They have stopped it for over 300 years. And here we are in Ghana, in Africa, talking about witchcraft and being concerned that we should be careful that we don't throw away our culture. That for me is not the line we should be going. We should be thinking about how can we preserve the good aspects, the more honorable, empowering aspects of our culture, and not the aspects of our culture that are destroying families. If you go to these communities where these accusations go on, there's so much rife and disharmony. Families don't talk to each other. People are not speaking because of the accusations. Some of the women who refuse to go back home is because of bitterness and anger. It's not just fear. It's because of how bitter they are to see their relatives who have accused them. So what culture is causing so much harm, not just to the individual women and victims, but also to the communities where this is happening. So I think we need to keep that in perspective.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing. We'd like to go to another question, which is quite related, which says, what are the churches doing to assist those accused of witchcraft? And two, what laws are made to prosecute those who accuse these so-called witches and actually help in lynching them? What are we doing as a country by way of the law to prosecute such people? And also, what are the churches doing to combat this unfortunate practice?
Yeah. Well, again, thank you to the speakers. I think they have covered what the state is doing. We have been working on this topic for over a year now with Action Aid and other groups. This is something that the Sunday Institute takes very seriously. Our experience is that the churches themselves need to be sensitized. There is not enough sensitization amongst the churches. And so we need to, because some of the accusations are done by pastors. It's not just happening in the north. The accusations happen across Ghana, across Africa, in Nigeria, in Tanzania, in Burkina Faso. It's in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's widespread across Africa, and pastors are involved in the accusations. So the churches have a huge role to play. Christian Council of Ghana, the Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference, the Ghana Pentecostal Councils, and all of these religious bodies have a very important role beyond just going to the camp and giving used clothing to these victims and going away. I hear the concern about not forcing the women to leave, and nobody should even think about forcing them to leave the camp. But the question is, would you like your sister to be in the camp? Would you like your mother to be in that camp? Would you like your relative to be in that camp? And if you wouldn't like to see your mother or your sister there, why should the place be okay for other people to stay there? And some of the women who are in the camps, we mentioned mental health issues. Some of them have been so traumatized, they don't even know what is good for them. They've accepted the situation. They just can't even bring themselves to think that where they are is not even good for them. So even the fact that the women don't want to go doesn't make the place a safe place, because they simply don't even know what is good for themselves now, for some of them. So we need to be mindful of all those caveats and nuances. And we need to get the churches really, really sensitized. It has to take education. I gave a presentation 3 weeks ago at the seminary in Accra on witchcraft in the Bible. The class was full. And after I finished my lecture, the students asked, so Prof, what are we going to do from now onwards? Because I proved to them it is not biblical. And they were confused. They were like, so what do we do now? They don't even know. We need to do a lot of education on what the Bible actually teaches about these things and what is not biblical, what is not Christian, what Islam teaches and what is not Quranic. We need to teach people about this. So the churches have a role to play in this.
Right. Thank you. So many questions coming in.
Very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, just very quick. In terms of, of course, it was there was a second part of the question about prosecution. It's difficult. in the earlier years, it was difficult because even the police were scared, like we go and prosecute, we go and arrest, the community can rise up against us and all that. But one thing that has really helped is the emergence of social media. And we saw that when the woman was lynched and the uproar, and that sort of propelled the police. It shouldn't be so, but we can take advantage of that opportunity and make this an advocacy issue. We have to make this an advocacy issue. We need to put it on the front burner and then ensure that interventions actually address, and we have a way of measuring our progress. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you
and-
for chipping in.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, let me just make this comment about the prosecutions, the law enforcement. I'm so glad Nana has mentioned that. We were involved, the Standard Institute was involved in campaign against one of the camps or a base in the Upper East region, which was just starting. It was drawing lots of people, and women were brutalized and humiliated because they were accused as witches. When we mounted this campaign, we had to get the camp owners arrested. It was a tug of war. The law enforcement is so difficult in Ghana. The laws are there, but they have got, some of these people are connected to politicians, they are connected to chiefs, they are connected to all. So to even enforce the law, it takes a lot of hard work. We had to get ourselves way up to even to the IGP, to get the IGP to intervene for the people to be arrested. Of course, they were bailed shortly afterwards by the powerful lobbyists, and politicians were involved in lobbying for their release. Thankfully, because of the arrests and the social media that Nana talked about, people saw them handcuffed and they were paraded by the police. That alone killed the camp. That image alone made people to stop going to the camp. So the camp is there, but nobody goes there any longer. But the people have not been prosecuted. So if you're talking about laws, the laws are there, but who is to see to the enforcement of the laws when you have got chiefs, you've got even police officers, you've got politicians interfering, meddling when a case is brought up. And these poor, vulnerable women simply have no one to speak up for them.
Thank you. So many questions and comments are pouring in from all over the world. I've just received one from India. It says, this is a very useful discussion. A question would something like a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, as in South Africa, help in reintegrating the persecuted women? This commission will need to discuss how to overcome the belief in witchcraft and the culture of witch hunts. Any one of our speakers can speak to this. Will a Truth and Reconciliation Commission work in helping to stem this unfortunate trend?
This is an interesting dimension. But I think that before we even get to the Truth and Reconciliation level, there are many basic things that we have not yet done. What is the level of education? How is this infused into education right from the primary stage? If we have the parity that we talk about vis-a-vis education, it would mean that almost everybody is in school. How is this being dealt with? Again, I say this is that we should not forget the socio-economic dynamics of the witchcraft accusations. How many people in the highbrow areas of the urban areas are ever accused of witchcraft? So first of all, we should work on the mindset, formally and informally. Secondly, the economic aspect. If people have decent employment, they will not be owners of witch camps. Thirdly, we should look at the issue of the law enforcement, as has been said. But what again is the mindset of the law enforcers? As the first speaker, Madam Esther, said, some of them are even scared of these situations. So I think this is a very interesting dimension. But in my perspective, there are many fundamentals that we have not touched, very basic, and for which we have the setup, the infrastructure, the social infrastructure that we have not yet fully exploited. Thank you.
Right, thank you. A question has just dropped in from Nigeria and is asking, he's saying that in Nigeria, there are more children accused of witchcraft than perhaps it is in Ghana. So she wants to know whether children are also accused of witchcraft in Ghana.
Yeah, if I could look at that. A very interesting question. And in Ghana, we're increasingly seeing children in the prayer camps. So that is more a Christian problem or issue. So the children, I believe, and Auntie Hilary and Madam Esther Boateng would can confirm. I believe quite a number of the children in the camps in the northern part of Ghana are children or grandchildren of the inmates.
Yes.
We come down south.
Absolutely.
We have quite a lot of prayer camps in the rural area, even in the metropolis. And you have children who have been accused of witchcraft, who are chained. Some of them are chained to, they are chained just like how the mentally ill are also chained. They are made to fast for days. They are made to confess. Some of them are beating up and all that. And I don't know whether much research has been done on that area, but I did some research on that, and we do have quite a number of children in prayer camps in Ghana, and they are accused of witchcraft or possessing spirits, and their attempts to exorcise them and what have you. So yes, but that is for Christian religion and not the traditional.
Right. Another question has just come from, again, from Nigeria. He says that, do Ghanaian preachers use Exodus 22, verse 18, which says, in King James, suffer not a witch to live? Now, how are we supposed to, as Christians, how are we supposed to engage that scripture in our society?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. That was the main focus of my lecture at the seminary a few weeks ago. And that text is the chief text that pastors use, preachers use. Suffer not a witch to live, which means witches should be killed. And that was what the church used around the 15th century to enforce witch hunting and burning of so-called witches, mainly women. And this went on for centuries also. So that verse, suffer not a witch to live, in Exodus, is a key verse in the Bible that has been misused, misapplied. And what I did was, you have to look at the word in Hebrew and look at the word as it was translated into Greek and then translated into Latin and into English and into local languages. Look at the word. The word witch there has nothing to do with the witches that we believe in Africa who fly in the night, suck people's blood, eat people's souls, destroy people's businesses. It has nothing to do with that phenomena. So the word that is translated witch in the Bible, King James, is actually properly translated witch doctor. It's a witch doctor, people who use magic and all kinds of forms of supernatural powers for all kinds of purposes, including good and evil. It's not witches who fly in the night. So I was able to demonstrate that that verse is being mistranslated into English and mistranslated into some of the local languages. In fact, some of the local languages got the translation right. They don't use witch. They use a different word, which is like a magician. So we need to be very careful about scripture and some of these terminologies and the way we misuse them without, or even use them without understanding their full kind of meaning.
Right. Another question has come in which says that, is witch camp not the effect of a problem? We not focus greater efforts at eliminating witchcraft accusation, which actually has necessitated the building of these camps? I'd like to tie it in with a second question, which says, if we are setting up a separate community now for the existing inmates and close down the camp, what happens to those who will be accused later? I don't know if my question came through.
Yes, part of it was part of it I lost. Maybe my own, maybe my network. But the issue, the separate community. I heard that if we're setting up a separate community, and I think that is the part that I want to address, because I talked about ensuring that the so-called witches live in dignity. So I don't know whether it's in response to that remark that I made, and I'll use the opportunity to clarify the remark. The remark focused on the fact that there will be some people, good or bad culture, who have developed a community living in the camps, developed networks, relationships, bondings, who may not want to go back. There will be. There, as we have seen, bondings with captors and captives, because these are really not safe havens. They are detention centers. But there may have been a bonding through the ostracization, through the isolation between members, the loss of family. As Nanas rightly mentioned, 3 had nobody to take them. So for those who will not or are not able to leave, we must ensure that the conditions they live in are top-notch. And so this is where I was coming from. I was not actually thinking of building a community and saying, come, all you who are accused of witchcraft. But I was thinking of improving, upscaling the conditions in which those who will not leave can live in. And if it is the fact that they are many, yes, why not? The bottom line is that, 1, we want safe reintegration, do know how. The second is that there are people who will not want this alternative, and they must be given the very best to the highest level of human rights standards. How each is done in each environment, condition, is left for the implementers. If there are only 3 people left who will not go home, you cannot quite build a school and a market and a community there. But if there are 50 or 100 who certainly do not want to go home, you must have a community that works in dignity. Thank you.
Thank you. So maybe to help situate your answer, the second part of the question is witch camp not the effect of a problem of witchcraft accusation? Shouldn't we not focus greater efforts at eliminating witchcraft accusation, which actually brings about these witch camps? And
I agree.
What are we doing to stop that? And they also want to know, do we need a separate law to criminalize witchcraft allegation?
Okay, then let me begin from the last one. As I said myself in my statement, there is a plethora of laws, civil and criminal. Nana Oye also added to it. There are enough laws. I do not think we need a separate law for the witchcraft accusation. I don't think so. We can work creatively with what we have. Secondly, there is the earlier part of the statement. Is it not an effect of the accusation? Indeed, I could not agree more with the questioner. Absolutely. And this is why I call for education, proper education, holistic education, which is based on the nuances of what pertains in the community. If we are well educated, both formally, informally, religiously, as we've had Prof explain to us, we will not even have the witchcraft accusations. We will know that when a tree falls on someone, it is not necessarily a woman sleeping quietly at home or cooking her meals directed that tree to fall. How education is given, methodology, content, relevance, will enable us no longer give capital to these kinds of accusations.
Right. Thank you. Another question has just come in, and it says, I'd like to read it. It's quite a lengthy one. I thank all the speakers and also Professor Zuma for the initiative of organizing this forum. I think theologians, scholars, and traditionalists and religious leaders have a role to play for the closure of these camps. Is it not possible to invite our heads of churches and other religious leaders to a forum like this for the purpose of education? Has there ever been any meeting involving the religious leaders in Ghana to fully understand this issue?
Yeah, I thank you very much. This is a brilliant idea. I mean, at least if we start speaking about the issue, bringing the different perspectives, especially creating a nexus between the, I don't know whether it should call, it's not even emerging, is the emerged prayer camp violations, the detention of women and children in these prayer camps, as against the witch camps and the detention and the human rights abuses against the women in the witch camps. At least we can start a conversation. Different perspectives can be brought, different experiences, and that could be a process. We started a national discussion on witchcraft accusations. I believe it was in 2015, and that went very well. But of course, it was just like half a day, so we couldn't really achieve much. But at least if we were to do that around Ghana and even for Africa, I think that would help, because we are really sharing a lot of ideas and thoughts even on this platform. So I'm hoping, as one of the recommendations after this session, we would critically look at that, especially the church, because the church is powerful. The Muslim community is also powerful, and also the traditional, and the three can come together to crusade this cause in the interest of humanity and in the interest of the women who are adversely affected and the children.
Right. Thank you. And many questions are pouring in, but I'd like to read out one. He says, are there acclaimed witches in Ghana who actually belong to the fraternity? If yes, how do Ghanaians react to them? Anyone can answer to this. Are there acclaimed witches in Ghana who actually belong to the fraternity? If yes, how do Ghanaians react to them?
Well, sorry.
As which fraternity? Which fraternity? Sorry, I don't know. Which fraternity is this?
I think the question is coming from the Western context. There are acclaimed witches in the West, and they have got their fraternities that they belong to, that they are very public about their beliefs in as witches and witchery, and therefore they practice witchcraft. it is again very different from what we are talking about in Africa. That is more like the magic I'm talking about, practice of magic and all kinds of supernatural forces. But in Africa, the belief in witchcraft is the epitome of evil. If you say someone is a witch, the person has been dehumanized. In fact, the person has been made into an evil entity, and therefore the person is open to attacks. So nobody will openly identify themselves as a witch. You may find witch doctors in Africa who claim they have powers to detect and even exorcise witches, witchcraft. But the witches that we are talking about in Africa, in Ghana, are the vulnerable ones who are accused of causing harm, mainly causing harm to others and to society. And therefore, we don't have that same understanding of witchery in Africa as we do in other parts of the Western world, where people practice different forms of witchery.
I may just add on, this is also where we have called on our health sector, the Ministry of Health, to provide more information and to come up with a policy for geriatric care and information on geriatrics. I mean, like what happens when you get dementia and what have you. Because every now and then you wake up in the morning, there's a whole hula baloo in the media about an old woman who is a witch and flew throughout the night, and because the sun rose early, away and she has landed in somebody's bedroom or has landed in somebody's compound, she's beaten up and what have you. And we believe that maybe the woman has dementia or has lost her way. And if the health sector would also integrate this and even provide information on dementia and some of the illnesses that elderly persons receive, we could also have a reduction of witchcraft accusation. But there have been quite a number of stories where you wake up and they'll say, a woman has flown, a witch, and they normally fly in the night, or somebody has a sore, an ulcer on the leg, and they say they are using the leg of their nephew or niece as a chopping board. When they chop up the meat they eat during the night, they use the leg, and that's why the ulcer doesn't heal. So we also need to get the health sector involved in this as a stakeholder.
Right. Thank you so much. So many questions have come in, but I think we have exhausted our time. And so we'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody for participating. I know if we open the floodgates, more questions would come in and comments. I want to thank our speakers for giving us the three perspectives that we have received this afternoon. I think at this point, I would like to thank Madam Hilary Bedema for the insights you've given us. Actually, a question has just dropped in specifically for you. Then we can wrap up with that. It says, this is specifically to Madam Hilary Bedema. Has your committee dealt with situations in other countries? For example, in Tanzania, you may know older women are regularly murdered as suspected witches. Police records say over 1,000 have been killed in Tanzania in the 2000s. Some of my friends there said Ghana was better than the women in Tanzania because we have a witch camp. What do you have to say to that?
Yes, we have seen witchcraft accusations from countries apart from Ghana. But for that, this question is really interesting. But for some reason, we deal with those, make the appropriate recommendations across sectors. But for some reason, the Ghanaian witch camp concept is not a really edifying one. It is one of poor conditions, further abuse. So it's like it's an abuse on abuse. And Ghana is the only country from which we have seen the phenomenon of a witch camp. So this is the quite vague answer. Yes, witchcraft from other countries. Yes, recommendations. But Ghana is the only place where they are more or less put in detention under those conditions. So this is why this makes our situation a little bit more egregious and yes, and attracting negative publicity.
I think that the import of the question is that more women get killed in Tanzania because they don't have any escape camp to go to.
Okay, with the greatest respect, in terms of figures, we really, I will not say we've been able to do we have enough data to make this comparative conclusion. There may come in figures from Tanzania, but the fact that there are no figures from Ghana doesn't mean there are no figures or that the numbers are less, as from the committee's perspective, from what comes before us. So it will be unfair to draw a conclusion here on that aspect vis-a-vis the committee's work. Anecdotally and factually, it may be true, but vis-a-vis what comes before the committee, I would not be able to make a conclusion.
Right.
Thank you. And thank the question. This is a very interesting perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. At this point, I would like to call on Professor Zuma to perhaps wrap up for us and close us for.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Odro, for moderating. Nana Oyebampo, we're so grateful to you for making time. Auntie Hilary, we met at Kimpiski some time back. Thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your perspectives. Auntie Esther, we are in this together, and you are the one on the ground in the camps, working on the ground there, and we so appreciate you and the work that Action Aid is doing. We are very, very grateful to all of you who have made it to camps. People from Tanzania, people calling from Zimbabwe, from Indonesia. I am here in the US. I've seen some colleagues from the US here who have joined, and also South Africa, Nigeria. Thank you all. The issue we are dealing with is deep-rooted, and the belief is widespread. This is not a one-day seminar thing. We need to all work at it. The women in the camps, there is not just a physical prison they are in. There's a psychological prison, like Auntie Esther mentioned. Some of the women are so even psychologically afraid to leave the camps without the permission of the camp owner, because they have been made to believe if they leave, something will happen to them. So even if government steps in today and puts up buildings and said the women should move in there, not many, if any, will move unless the camp owners release them, so to speak. So there's a psychological factor in this that is deep-rooted. And I have been to some of these camps, and we are doing work in the camps. Auntie Esther talks about data. The Sani Institute is at the moment gathering data on the ground in all the camps. We've got people there who are working as of now that we are speaking, who are gathering the data. So we know what is happening on the ground there too. And Nana spoke about the political involvement. One key thing is lack of political will. If there's a political will, I think Hillary's point will happen. The camps can be closed if the politicians and the chiefs want to close it. The camps can be closed. If they take the women there and this priest believes that he can cleanse the women, he can purify the women, he can exorcise the women, why can't the women go back home after they have been exorcised, so to speak? If you take someone to the hospital after they are cured, they go home. Why should there be camps? So there are ways in which the government and the traditional rulers can bring this to an end if they really want to do it. The economic factor is huge. We haven't talked much about it. People are making money out of this. This has become an industry. It has become something for some people's jobs. If you close the witch camps today, some people will lose their jobs. Some people lose their jobs and they cannot get. So it's like the olden days. You pay the slave master in order to free the slaves. This is what is happening. We have to pay the slave masters to free the slaves. This is the situation that we find ourselves in. Churches, when I spoke, churches are making money on witchcraft. If people stop preaching on witchcraft, it looks like people will not come to church. So witchcraft is an industry. It's a huge industry that people are making money from, and it's not going to be an easy battle to fight against. So we need to continue on this, and the Sunday Institute is in this. We will invite all those who want to partner with us to really join us as we take on the education component seriously. Once again, thank you all. May God bless us. May God save Mother Ghana, and may God look down upon these victims and help us find the ways of relieving them of the trauma that they are in. Thank you all once again, and God bless.